My wife drained my savings while pretending to care for me after surgery. So I recovered, took everything back quietly, and left her begging for closure. I'm a 32-year-old guy, and I thought marrying Lily meant I'd never face life alone again. We were that couple everyone envied. Lazy Sunday breakfasts in bed, playlists for every road trip, inside jokes that made people roll their eyes. We'd been planning to buy our first home together, a small place with a backyard for the dog we promised we'd adopt when things settled down. Life felt stable, predictable, safe. That illusion shattered one rainy Friday night. I remember the wipers barely keeping up, the headlights smearing through the downpour, and Lily laughing softly beside me, telling me to slow down. Then, screeching tires. A blinding flash, metal grinding against metal. My world flipped, literally. When I opened my eyes, everything hurt. The airbag had deployed, the taste of blood filled my mouth, and Lily's voice was distant. A muffled cry, panicked, calling my name over and over. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. My leg was in a brace. My ribs felt like fire, and the doctor's words were a blur. Long recovery, limited movement, physical therapy. I was terrified. But when Lily walked in, eyes red from crying, holding my hand so tight it almost hurt, I thought, at least I have her. Those first few weeks at home were rough. I couldn't shower alone. I couldn't even make it to the bathroom without her help. But Lily kept saying, "Don't worry, babe, we'll get through this together." She smiled through the exhaustion, made my meals, managed everything. I'd look at her and think, how did I get so lucky? What I didn't see then was the subtle shift. The way she started keeping my phone to help with messages. The way she handled the bills without asking. At the time, I thought it was love. I didn't realize it was the beginning of control, and by the time I did, it was already too late. The first few weeks after the accident blurred together in a haze of painkillers, sleep, and Lily's soft voice telling me everything would be okay. She was perfect, too perfect maybe. She woke up early to make breakfast, fluffed my pillows every few hours, and whispered, "You just focus on healing. I'll take care of the rest." I remember watching her move through the house like some kind of angel, efficient, calm, gentle. I didn't realize angels could hide claws. When the bills started piling up, I panicked. I'd been the one handling finances before, keeping track of every expense. But Lily stopped me mid-sentence, placing a hand on my chest. "You can't stress right now," she said softly. "Money will sort itself out. Just give me your card, I'll handle it." I hesitated, but she leaned in, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Please, let me do something for you." And I did. God, I did. Soon, everything. The rent, the insurance, even the hospital paperwork, went through her. She was the gatekeeper of my life. If someone called, she'd answer first. "He's resting," she'd say, even when I wasn't. When friends texted, she'd reply with a polite, "He's sleeping. I'll let him know." Days turned into weeks, and I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. Still, I convinced myself this was love, her way of protecting me while I healed. One evening, she sat beside me on the couch, scrolling on her phone while I struggled to reach my water glass. "You're quiet today," she said. "Just tired," I muttered. She smiled without looking up. "Good, don't overthink. I've got everything under control." At the time, those words comforted me. Later, I'd realize they were a warning I didn't understand yet. And that perfect care? It was the prettiest cage I'd ever been trapped in. Recovery dragged on longer than anyone expected. Weeks melted into months, and somewhere between the pain and the pills, I started to notice small changes, quiet inconsistencies that didn't make sense. It began with something minor. One afternoon, while Lily was out getting groceries, I checked the fridge and realized she hadn't bought half the things she claimed to. When I asked later, she brushed it off. "Oh, the store was out," she said, smiling. But the next day, a new designer bag sat on the counter. She laughed when I mentioned it. "It was on sale. You'd be proud. I saved money." Then came the missing receipts. Every time I asked about our finances, she'd tilt her head like I'd just insulted her. "Do you really think I'd lie to you while you're like this?" She'd whisper, eyes glistening. "After everything I've done?" The guilt hit harder than the pain in my ribs. I'd back down every time. "You're right. I'm sorry." Her reply was always the same, a sweet smile and a pat on my hand. That's my good boy. My body healed, but my confidence shrank. I'd try to check my bank account and she'd snatch the phone. "You shouldn't worry about that," she'd say. "You'll just stress yourself and slow down recovery." Sometimes she'd even cry, real tears or maybe practiced ones, saying how hard it was taking care of everything alone. And I'd comfort her, me, the guy who couldn't even walk without help, consoling the woman supposedly sacrificing for me. But the strangest part, I wanted to believe her. I needed to. Because if she wasn't who I thought she was, then I'd have to admit I was completely powerless. Physically, financially, and emotionally. And deep down, I think she knew that, because every time I doubted her, she tightened her grip a little more. The walls of our home started closing in. Not literally, but emotionally. Lily said it was for my peace, but it felt more like a lockdown. At first, it made sense. She told my friends, "He's still weak, he needs rest," whenever they wanted to visit. I believed her. I was embarrassed about my condition anyway. But soon, even my family stopped calling. My mother's voice became something I heard through Lily's filtered updates. "Mom says she's praying for you," she'd say casually, scrolling through her phone. When I asked to talk to her, Lily's expression hardened. "You don't need their pity," she said sharply. "They'll only make you feel worse. You think your mom wants to hear you like this? Helpless?" I didn't argue. I told myself she was protecting me from more emotional pain, that she knew best. That's how it always started, her making me feel cared for, then ashamed for needing anyone else. One night I overheard her on the phone. She laughed, carefree, warm, not the exhausted caretaker she pretended to be around me. "No, he's fine. He barely moves. I've got everything handled," she said, her tone dripping with confidence. My stomach twisted. When I called her out on it, she snapped. "You're paranoid. Maybe the meds are messing with your head." After that, she kept my prescriptions under lock and key. She said she didn't want me mixing them up, but I knew what it meant. Control. Every pill, every meal, every conversation went through her. I'd wake up at night to the sound of her typing, her phone lighting up her face. Sometimes she'd smile to herself. I'd close my eyes, pretending to sleep, pretending not to care. But something inside me began to crack. Because love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't make you feel like a prisoner. And somewhere deep down, I knew. I wasn't recovering. I was being replaced. It happened on a quiet Thursday night. One of those evenings when the house felt too still, too rehearsed. Lily had just gone to bed after another day of handling the bills. She kissed my forehead, whispered, "Don't worry, babe, I moved some money for next month's rent," and turned off the light. But something about her tone didn't sit right. Too casual, too smooth. When her breathing finally evened out, I reached for her laptop. It took me 3 tries to guess the password. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe reassurance, maybe proof that I was wrong. But the moment my account dashboard loaded, my chest tightened. The savings account I'd built over years of long hours, skipped vacations, and over time was nearly empty. Transfer after transfer. Thousands gone. Names I didn't recognize. Dates that lined up with her grocery trips and family emergencies. My hands trembled as I scrolled. My reflection in the laptop screen didn't even look like me. Pale, weak, humiliated. Every transaction was a piece of my trust vanishing into nothing. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I copied everything. Screenshots, statements, even her emails. One message made my blood run cold. A payment to a jewelry store for an item listed as custom gold bracelet. She'd never worn one. When I asked her the next morning, she smiled like she'd rehearsed it. "Oh, that's your gift for when you recover fully. You weren't supposed to see that." She laughed it off, poured me coffee, and kissed my cheek. But behind her smile I saw something new. Calculation. I sipped the coffee and forced a smile back. "Guess I ruined the surprise," I said softly. She touched my shoulder. "Don't you worry about anything, okay? I've got us covered." That night I stared at the ceiling, sleep refusing to come. Because for the first time I realized the woman promising to take care of me wasn't my safety net. She was the one cutting the ropes beneath me. After discovering the missing money, I couldn't unsee the cracks. Every movement, every smile of Lily's carried a shadow I hadn't noticed before. She was colder now, distracted. Her phone never left her side. Even when I tried to hold her hand, she'd flinch slightly, pretending she had something to check in the kitchen. The distance between us wasn't just emotional, it was intentional. One evening, she left her phone on the couch while rushing to answer the door. The screen lit up with a message preview that froze me in place. "Miss you already. Can't wait for next weekend. D." My heart slammed against my chest. My mind tried to reason. Maybe it was a friend, maybe a joke. But curiosity, or maybe survival, made me open it. What I found shattered me. The messages weren't just romantic, they were cruel. Lily and this man, Dan, mocked me. "He's so pathetic," she'd written. "Still thinks I'm his angel," Dan replied. "You're playing your role too well. Keep milking it." There were photos, expensive dinners, hotel rooms, gifts I'd unknowingly paid for. My hands shook as I read, scrolling through months of deceit. Every tender smile, every whispered "I love you" replayed in my head, but now twisted, poisoned. I felt like I was watching a horror movie starring my own life. When she came back in, laughing about some package delivery, I stared at her, wondering how she could still look so innocent. She leaned in, kissed my forehead, and said, "You're quiet today." "Just tired," I muttered, forcing a weak smile. That night I lay in the dark, listening to her breathing beside me, thinking of all the times I told her she saved me. But she hadn't saved me. She'd chosen the perfect moment, when I was most broken, to start destroying what was left of me. And for the first time, I stopped feeling sad. I started feeling angry. Anger became my medicine. It numbed the pain in a way the pills never could. I stopped asking questions and started pretending instead. Every morning, I thanked Lily for her sacrifices. Every night, I let her believe I was still weak, still dependent. But beneath that mask, I was planning. Quietly, deliberately. Physical therapy became my secret rebellion. I told her it was too painful to continue, that I needed more rest. In reality, I was pushing myself harder than ever, standing, walking, regaining strength in silence. The therapist agreed to keep it off the books after I explained that my wife gets anxious when I overexert myself. She gave me a knowing look. Maybe she saw what I couldn't admit yet, that I wasn't healing with Lily. I was healing from her. At home, Lily kept up the performance. She'd sigh loudly while paying bills, muttering about how expensive everything is. I'd offer to help, just to watch her refuse. No, you just focus on recovery," she'd say, brushing my hair like I was a child. Then, when she thought I wasn't looking, she'd send messages to Dan. Little hearts, selfies and new clothes, even pictures of the dinners I'd paid for. One evening, I asked, "Do you still love me?" She paused, eyes flickering. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" I forced a smile. Just needed to hear it. She kissed me, distracted. Her lips felt cold. Inside, something shifted. I stopped being her victim that day. I became her shadow. Quiet, observant, patient. I started recording conversations, saving receipts, and tracking every online transfer she made. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the wall I was building, one that would eventually trap her instead of me. She still thought I was broken, still thought I was easy to control, but she had no idea. The man she betrayed was learning to walk again, one quiet step at a time. Even with my strength returning, the house still felt like a cage I couldn't escape. Lily's control wasn't physical anymore, it was psychological. She'd walk around humming, smiling at me like everything was perfect, while I silently watched my world shrink around her lies. The pretending was eating me alive. Then one morning, I checked my hidden account, the one I used to store what little savings I had left before the accident. The balance read 42.17. I refreshed the page, thinking it was a glitch. It wasn't. Every last cent had been transferred out the day before into Lily's joint expenses account. I felt my stomach drop, my chest hollowing out. That was my emergency cushion, my last bit of independence. Gone. When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. "I told you, I used it for your medical bills," she said coolly. "I thought insurance covered that." Her lips curved. "Not everything. But hey, at least you're alive, right?" That smirk, it broke something in me. The woman I once adored was now looking at me like I was a burden she'd outgrown. That night, she packed for a girls' trip. I overheard her talking to Dan on the phone, laughing softly. "Yeah, he's still limping. Don't worry, I'll be free soon." After she left, I sat in the dark living room, surrounded by silence and betrayal. I had no money, no one I could call. Lily had made sure of that. My body trembled, not from pain, but from realization. I had nothing left she could take, except my dignity. And that's when clarity hit. She thought I was powerless because I was quiet. But silence can be sharper than any scream. It can cut deeper, last longer, and hit when they least expect it. That night, at my lowest point, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront her. I'd outsmart her. From that night on, my silence became my weapon. I played my part perfectly. The helpless husband, too broken to question, too grateful to fight back. But behind that mask, every breath I took was deliberate. I was done reacting. Now I was planning. The first thing I did was move quietly. I visited my bank in person, using the crutches as props. I told them my wife had mixed up some details after my accident and requested new login credentials for security reasons. The sympathetic teller helped me set up a secondary account, one Lily didn't know existed. That small victory felt like oxygen. Next, I contacted an old friend, Eric, someone Lily had cut off months ago under the excuse of protecting me from stress. I sent him a text. "Don't reply. Just meet me at the clinic parking lot." When we met, I told him everything. The drained accounts, the affair, the manipulation. He stared at me like he couldn't believe it, then said quietly, "You get the proof. I'll help you disappear when the time comes." At home, I began collecting everything. Screenshots, financial statements, her text messages. I'd wait until Lily fell asleep, then forward evidence to a secure folder. I even planted a cheap voice recorder under the coffee table. Every sigh, every lie, every phone call was captured. Lily didn't notice. She was too busy planning her next business trip, too caught up in her double life to see mine unfolding beneath her feet. The irony was poetic. She'd built a cage for me, but I was the one slowly locking the door behind her. One evening, she smiled sweetly and said, "You're lucky to have me, you know." I smiled back. "Yeah," I said softly. "Luckiest man alive." She laughed, not knowing how right I was, because luck had finally shifted. And this time, it was on my side. By the time Lily returned from her so-called business trip, I was walking again. Not perfectly, not without a limp, but enough to no longer need her. She didn't notice, of course. She never really looked at me anymore. She'd sweep through the house with the perfume of someone else's attention, too busy texting to see that I was no longer dragging my feet. Every day, I rehearsed my freedom in small ways. I cooked my own meals, drove short distances under the pretense of doctor's visits. And with every mile I drove alone, I felt my old self resurfacing, the man she'd tried to erase. I met with my lawyer in secret. We went through the evidence: financial fraud, emotional neglect, proof of an ongoing affair. He nodded slowly, impressed. "You've got her cornered," he said. "When do you want to file?" "Not yet," I replied. I want her to see it coming and realize too late, so I waited. Played the devoted husband for 2 more weeks. I even bought her flowers, took her to dinner, asked about her day like I cared. She thought my softness meant surrender, not strategy. Meanwhile, I closed our joint accounts, rerouted my paychecks, and moved all assets to my private one. I called the landlord and removed her from the lease. The night before my final move, she stood by the window scrolling through her phone with that distant smirk. "Something on your mind?" she asked. "Just thinking," I said. "About what?" "How fast things can change when people stop pretending." She frowned, confused. I smiled. For once, I wasn't afraid. I'd spent months trapped under her control, but now every thread she'd woven was unraveling in my hands. By morning, she'd wake to find the world she built on my pain completely gone, and I'd be long, long gone with it. Dawn came quietly. The kind of morning where the world feels half asleep, peaceful, unaware that something irreversible is about to happen. I got up before sunrise, careful not to wake Lily. My bag was already packed: documents, phone, charger, the evidence drive, and a single envelope addressed to her. I stood there for a moment, watching her sleep. She looked calm, almost innocent. It was strange how betrayal could wear such a peaceful face. I took one last look around the house. The living room where I'd cried alone, the kitchen where she'd smiled while lying to me, the bed where she whispered love while texting another man. Every corner carried a memory, but none of it felt like home anymore. It felt like a stage I'd finally finished performing on. I left the keys on the counter beside the envelope. Inside were printed screenshots, bank records, and a simple handwritten note. "You taught me the power of silence. Now it's your turn to live with it." By the time she woke up, I was already gone. I drove to a small town an hour away, to a friend's spare apartment that Eric helped me secure. The air outside felt different, clean, unfiltered by her manipulation. I sat on the balcony, the morning sun warming my face, and for the first time in months, I breathed without guilt. Around noon, my phone started buzzing. Dozens of missed calls from Lily, then voicemails that shifted from confusion to panic. "Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just leave like this." Then anger. "You think you're smart? You'll regret this." I didn't answer a single one. I let her words echo into the void she created, because this time my silence wasn't weakness. It was justice. It's been 6 months since I walked out of that house, and not once have I looked back. The divorce papers were delivered quietly through my lawyer, wrapped with every piece of evidence she once thought I'd never find. She didn't fight it. How could she? Every transaction, every text, every lie was in black and white. The woman who used to control everything suddenly had nothing to bargain with, but that didn't stop her from trying. She showed up at my new place one evening. Same fake tears, same trembling voice. "I just need closure," she whispered, standing in the doorway. "I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Please, just talk to me." I looked at her. Not the woman I married, but the shell of someone who'd traded love for greed. "Closure?" I said quietly. "You don't get closure after destroying someone. You get consequences." Her face fell, and for a second the mask cracked. The manipulative calm she'd always worn slipped away, replaced by something raw. Fear. She tried to step closer, but I shook my head. "The difference between us, Lily, is that I lost everything and learned. You lost everything and still don't understand why." She cried harder, called my name, but I closed the door gently. Not in anger, but in peace. The sound of the latch clicking shut felt final, like the last line in a story I never wanted to live but needed to finish. Now, I live simply. My limp reminds me of what I survived, but also what I reclaimed. I sleep better. I eat without guilt. I trust slower but deeper. Lily still sends emails sometimes. Long apologies, empty promises. I never reply. She taught me that silence is power, and some stories don't need an ending, because walking away, quietly, completely, was the closure she'll never have.